Captain Kim Tae-ho was drinking his morning coffee when the universe changed forever. He sat in his chair on the bridge of the UES Defiant, watching the stars through the big window. The ship was quiet. Most of his crew was still sleeping. They were 3 months into their mission to explore the outer systems, looking for new planets where humans could live. The coffee was terrible, but Kim Tae-ho didn't mind. He had been a space captain for 20 years. Bad coffee was part of the job. He was thinking about his daughter back on Earth when every screen on the bridge suddenly turned bright white. "Captain," shouted Lieutenant Park Min-ho from his station, "something is wrong with our computers." But it wasn't their computers. Every communication device in human space was receiving the same signal. On Earth, people stopped walking in the streets and stared at their phones. On Mars, workers in the mining colonies looked up at the emergency screens. On the moon bases, scientists dropped their tools and watched in shock. The white light faded. A face appeared on every screen in human space. It was not human. The creature was tall and thin, made of what looked like living crystal. Its skin was blue-green and seemed to glow from inside. It had 4 arms and eyes that were completely black. When it moved, Kim Tae-ho could hear a sound like breaking glass. "I am Admiral Na Soo-jin of the Viridian Hegemony," the alien said. Its voice was cold and clear. "We speak to the species you call human. We have watched you spread to many worlds. We have studied your kind." Kim Tae-ho felt his hands shake. First contact with aliens. Every human had wondered when this day would come. Now it was here. "The Viridian Hegemony rules this galaxy," Admiral Na Soo-jin continued. "We have brought peace to 847 different species. Each of these species chose to join us rather than fight us. They made the smart choice. Now we offer the same choice to humanity." The alien moved closer to the camera. Kim Tae-ho could see that its crystal skin had cracks in it like old ice. "You have 72 Earth hours to decide. Submit to hegemony rule and live in peace. Your people will be relocated to worlds we choose. Your culture will be preserved in our museums. Your leaders will be treated with respect as they help us govern your people." Images appeared on the screen. Beautiful alien worlds with strange cities. Humans working alongside other alien species. It looked peaceful. It looked safe, or, Admiral Na Soo-jin said, and the images changed. "You can choose to fight us." The new images made Kim Tae-ho's stomach turn. Planets turned into burning rock. Cities turned to glass. Bodies floating in space. Entire solar systems gone dark. "These are the worlds that chose to fight the hegemony," the alien explained. "They thought they were strong, they thought they were special, they were wrong. In the end, they all begged for mercy. But mercy is only offered once." Admiral Na Soo-jin stepped back. 847 species have joined our great empire. They live in peace now. They are happy. You can be the 848th species to choose wisdom over pride. The alien raised one of its forearms. 72 hours, humans. Choose carefully. This message will not be repeated. The screens went black. Kim Tae-ho sat in silence for a long moment. Around him, his crew was starting to panic. Lieutenant Park Min-ho was trying to contact Earth. Communications Officer Yang So-young was checking if the message was real. Engineer Cho Byung-ho was running scans to see if alien ships were nearby. "Captain," Yang So-young said in a quiet voice. The message came from everywhere at once. It came through systems that should be impossible to break into. The signal was stronger than anything we've ever seen. Kim Tae-ho nodded. He picked up his communicator and called Earth. On Earth, President Park Ji-woo was having the worst day of her life. She sat in the emergency bunker under Seoul, surrounded by the leaders of every nation on Earth. The Global Defense Council had been created 50 years ago to handle threats from space. They had always imagined asteroids or solar flares. They had never imagined this. "How many ships do we have?" President Park asked General Lee Dong-min, the head of Earth's military forces. 600 combat ships spread across all our colonies, General Lee replied. "Most of them are small. We have 12 big battleships and 30 cruisers. The rest are destroyers and fighters. And how many people? 12 billion humans across 47 worlds and space stations. President Park looked at the data on her screen. 12 billion people, 600 ships against an empire that ruled the galaxy. Ma'am, said Dr. Yoon Hae-rin, Earth's top scientist who studied alien life. I've been looking at the video they sent us. The footage of destroyed worlds. What did you find? Dr. Yoon pulled up images on the main screen. Look at these battlefields. Look at the destroyed ships. These species had technology similar to ours. Some had better weapons, some had bigger fleets, but look at this. She pointed to one image. It showed a field of wrecked alien ships. See how the ships are arranged? They were running away. All of these species saw the hegemony's power and tried to escape. So? Asked General Lee. So none of them fought to the end. They saw they couldn't win and tried to retreat. That's when the hegemony destroyed them. Dr. Yoon changed the image. But what if a species didn't run? What if they fought until every ship was gone? What if they made the hegemony pay for every planet, every moon, every space station? President Park understood. You think they've never faced a species willing to fight a hopeless war? I think they've never faced humans, Dr. Yoon said. For the next 3 days, Earth was in chaos. Some people wanted to surrender. They pointed to the footage of destroyed worlds and said fighting was suicide. Others wanted to fight. They said freedom was worth more than life. The leaders of every nation met constantly. They talked to generals and scientists and philosophers. They read the messages pouring in from human colonies across space. Mars wanted to fight. The asteroid miners wanted to fight. The research stations wanted to fight. The farming colonies were split. Kim Tae-ho brought his ship home to Earth's orbit on the second day. He met with President Park and the other leaders. Captain, President Park said, you were the first human to see their message. What do you think we should do? Kim Tae-ho was quiet for a moment. He thought about his daughter, who was now 25 and had her own family. He thought about his crew, who had followed him for years through dangerous space. He thought about all the humans he had never met, living their lives on distant worlds. Ma'am, he said finally, I've been in space for 20 years. I've seen how big the galaxy is. I know how small we are compared to everything out there. But I also know something else. What's that? Humans don't give up. When we were stuck on one planet, we built ships to reach the stars. When space tried to kill us, we learned to survive in it. When other people said something was impossible, we did it anyway. Kim Tae-ho looked around the room. These aliens think we're just another species that will choose safety over freedom. They don't understand who we are. On the third day, President Park called for a vote, not just from world leaders, but from every human colony, every space station, every ship in the fleet. 12 billion people were asked one simple question. Do we surrender to alien rule, or do we fight for our freedom? The results came in over 24 hours. Colony after colony reported their vote. Station after station sent their answer. When it was over, President Park stood before the cameras to address all of humanity. My fellow humans, she said, across all our worlds, across all our differences, you have spoken with one voice. The vote is complete. She paused and looked directly into the camera. The vote was unanimous. Not one colony chose surrender. Not one station voted for alien rule. 12 billion humans have given the same answer. President Park's voice grew, stronger. We do not bow. We do not surrender. We do not trade our freedom for safety. She stood up. To the Viridian hegemony, we send this message. You have conquered 847 species. You will not conquer the 848th. We are human. We choose to fight. Across human space, people watched their leaders' words. Some cried, some cheered, some prayed, but they all knew what was coming. War. In the outer systems, long-range sensors detected something that made every human military officer go pale. Ships, hundreds of them, big ones. They were moving toward Earth at impossible speeds. Admiral Na Soo-jin had received humanity's answer. Now she was coming to collect what she was owed. But as the alien fleet moved through space toward humanity's home system, something strange happened. The Admiral's telepathic officers, who could read the thoughts of other species from light years away, started reporting something they had never encountered before. The humans weren't afraid. Oh, they knew they were going to die. They understood they had no chance of winning. But instead of the panic and despair the hegemony was used to sensing, they felt something else from humanity. Excitement. The humans were actually looking forward to the fight. Admiral Na Su-jin studied the reports with growing confusion. In 100,000 years of conquest, she had never seen anything like this. Every species, when faced with the hegemony's power, felt fear. It was natural. It was smart. The alien ships arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system like a storm made of metal and death. 200 massive vessels, each one the size of a city, moving through space in perfect formation. They were not built like human ships. These were grown like living things, with curved surfaces that seemed to breathe and glow with their own inner light. Captain Kim Tae-ho stood on the bridge of his ship, now renamed the UES Defiant, watching the enemy fleet approach. Around him, the hastily assembled Earth Defense Fleet waited in formation. 50 human ships against 200 alien giants. The largest human battleship was tiny compared to the smallest alien vessel. "Captain," said Lieutenant Park Min-ho, "we're receiving a transmission from the alien flagship." "Put it on screen." Admiral Na Su-jin appeared again, her crystal face showing what might have been sadness. Behind her, Kim Tae-ho could see the bridge of her ship. It was alive. The walls pulsed like a heartbeat. Strange creatures that might have been crew members moved in the background. "Captain Kim Tae-ho of humanity," the Admiral said. "I know your name. I know your history. You have served your species well for 20 years. You have a daughter named Kim Ji-young, and a granddaughter you have never met." Kim Tae-ho felt cold. How did she know these things? "Your species shows promise," Admiral Na Su-jin continued. "In our studies, we have seen humans create beautiful art, solve complex problems, show love for each other. You could have a place in our empire. Your people could live good lives." She leaned forward. "But you have chosen death instead." "I do not understand this choice. Explain to me why you would rather die than live in peace under our rule." Kim Tae-ho was quiet for a moment. He looked around his bridge at his crew, Lieutenant Park Min-ho, who had served with him for 8 years. Communications Officer Yang So-young, who had 2 children on Mars. Engineer Cho Byung-ho, who had fixed their ship 1,000 times with spare parts and clever ideas. "Admiral," Kim Tae-ho said finally, "you asked me to explain something to you, but you're asking the wrong question." "What do you mean?" "You're asking why we would rather die than live under your rule, but that's not the choice we made." Kim Tae-ho stood up. "We didn't choose to die. We chose to fight. We chose to be free. If dying is the price of freedom, then we'll pay it. But we're not planning to die easy." Admiral Na Su-jin was quiet for a long moment. "I have conquered 847 species, Captain. Some had weapons that could destroy stars. Some had fleets that numbered in the thousands. All of them died." "Maybe," Kim Tae-ho said, "but none of them were human. We're about to show you the difference." The transmission ended. Admiral Na Su-jin turned to her officers. "Begin the attack. Standard formation. Target their largest ships first. Make it quick." But as the hegemony fleet moved into battle formation, something unexpected happened. The human ships didn't try to meet them in open space. Instead, they scattered in all directions, moving fast and low, using asteroids and space debris as cover. "What are they doing?" asked War Commander Veltok, Na Su-jin's second-in-command. "They're running," Na Su-jin replied. But she sounded uncertain. The human ships weren't running. They were hunting. Commander Choi Young-soo's destroyer, the UES Seoul, came screaming out from behind a large asteroid, moving faster than any ship its size should be able to move. The crew had removed half the armor and all the non-essential equipment to make it lighter and faster. "Target the big one in the middle," Choi ordered. "All weapons, fire everything we have." The Soul opened fire with every weapon it carried. Nuclear missiles, plasma cannons, railgun rounds, even the emergency flares. The alien ships living. Armor absorbed most of the damage, but some of the shots got through. For the first time in 1,000 years, a hegemony ship was hurt by an enemy attack. Impossible, breathed War Commander Veltok. Our bioarmor should stop anything they have. Return fire, Admiral Nasujin ordered. Destroy that ship. The alien dreadnought's weapons were terrible to see. Streams of acid that could eat through metal in seconds. Living metal creatures that attached to enemy ships and consumed them from inside. Energy beams that could boil the water in a human body. The Soul was hit by all of these weapons at once. Commander Choi Young-soo had just enough time to smile before his ship dissolved around him, but the Soul had done its job. It had proven that the alien ships could be hurt. All over the battlefield, human ships began their attacks. They came, from unexpected angles, fired everything they had, then ran before the aliens could respond. It was not the kind of fighting that civilized species did. It was wild and chaotic and impossible to predict. Captain Bang Mi-kyung's cruiser, the UES Busan, came diving down from above the solar plane, where no sane ship would travel. She had pushed her engines beyond their safety limits and was moving so fast that her ship was glowing from the heat. "Ma'am," said her weapons officer, "if we fire all missiles at once, the recoil will tear us apart." "Then we better make them count," Captain Bang replied. "Fire everything." 36 nuclear missiles launched from the Busan in 2 seconds. The ship shook so hard that half the crew was knocked unconscious. But the missiles found their target, a hegemony heavy cruiser that had been preparing to fire on Earth. The alien ship staggered under the attack. Its bioarmor was torn open in dozens of places. Strange green liquid poured out into space. But the hegemony ship was still alive. Its weapons turned toward the Busan and fired. Captain Bang Mi-kyung and her crew died, but they died knowing they had hurt the enemy. In the asteroid belt, Lieutenant Colonel Huang Jin-woo was leading Earth's fighter squadrons in a desperate attack. His fighters were tiny compared to the alien ships, but they were fast and hard to hit. "Blue Squadron, follow me," Huang ordered. "We're going inside that big one." "Sir, inside?" asked his wingman, Lieutenant Lee Sobin. "The hangar bays are defended by—" "Not the hangar bay," Huang interrupted. "Look at that big wound the Soul made. We're going in through there." It was insane. Flying a fighter into a ship that was trying to kill you was suicide. The alien point defense. Weapons would cut them apart. The ship's immune system would attack them like viruses. But it worked. Huang's fighters screamed through the gap in the alien ship's hull and found themselves inside a living vessel. The walls around them pulsed and bled. Strange creatures attached to their ships trying to eat through the armor. "Drop the cryo charges and get out," Huang ordered. The fighters released their special weapons and fled back through the wound in the alien ship. Behind them, the cryo charges exploded, flash freezing everything around them. The living ship, used to controlling its temperature carefully, convulsed as part of it suddenly became too cold to function. The alien vessel began to die. On Luna Base, Dr. Song Min-ho was working frantically with a team of scientists and engineers. They had pieces of alien technology that had been collected from the battlefield, and they were trying to understand how it worked. "Look at this," Dr. Song said, pointing to a piece of the alien bioarmor. "It's not just alive. It's connected to everything else, like a nervous system." "What does that mean?" asked Engineer Pak Sumi. "It means if we can interrupt the connection, the whole system might shut down." Dr. Song looked up at his team. "We need to get this information to our ships, fast." The message went out to every human ship in the battle. The alien vessels had a weakness. They were controlled by a central nervous system that could be disrupted. Sergeant Lim Boram received the message aboard her boarding shuttle. She was leading a team of combat engineers on what everyone knew was a suicide mission. They were going to board an alien ship and try to plant bombs inside it. "You heard the doc?" Lim told her team. "We need to find the brain of this thing and shut it down. Everyone ready?" Her team consisted of 12 humans in heavy combat armor. They had trained for boarding actions against human ships. Nobody had trained them to fight inside a living alien vessel that was trying to eat them, but they were human. They would figure it out. The boarding shuttle attached to the hull of a hegemony dreadnought. The cutting tools burned through the living armor and the humans poured inside. The ship fought them immediately. The walls tried to close around them. Acidic blood sprayed from the ceiling. Creatures that looked like a mix of machine and animal attacked them from every direction. The humans fought back with everything they had. Pulse rifles, plasma cutters, grenades, knives, and when all else failed, their fists. Sergeant Lim Boram broke her rifle over the head of something with too many teeth, then picked up a piece of alien technology and used it as a club. "This way," shouted engineer Yu Seung-ho, following the directions Dr. Song had given them. "The nerve center should be through here." They fought their way deeper into the ship, leaving behind half their team, but they made it to the central chamber, where the ship's brain was kept. It was beautiful and horrible at the same time. A mass of crystal and flesh the size of a house, pulsing with light and connected to every part of the ship by thousands of nerve fibers. "Plant the charges," Lim ordered. "Electromagnetic pulse bombs. Let's see how this thing likes being cut off from its body." 6 months had passed since the first battle, and humanity was not the same species that had faced Admiral Nasujin's fleet. Every asteroid in the solar system was now a fortress. Every space station had been turned into a weapons platform. Every civilian ship had been converted to carry weapons or supplies. Director Kang So-young stood in the command center of New Terra Station, watching the construction feeds from across human space. Where once humans had built homes and schools and shopping centers, now they built weapons factories and training facilities and military bases. "Ma'am," said her assistant, Lieutenant Commander Oh Min-jun, "the Mars shipyards have completed another batch of fighters, 200 this time." "Good. What about the asteroid fortresses?" "Ceres Station reports full operational status. The railgun is working perfectly. They can hit targets halfway to Jupiter." Oh Min-jun paused. "Ma'am, they're asking if they can test it on one of the moons." "Tell them no. We'll need those moons later." Director Kang looked at the strategic display. Red dots showed human military positions. There were thousands of them now. "What's the latest intelligence on the hegemony?" Long-range scouts report. "A massive buildup in the Proxima system. At least 2,000 ships, maybe more. And ma'am, they have a new commander." Director Kang felt her stomach tighten. "Show me." The main screen changed to show intelligence photos taken by human spy drones. The new hegemony fleet was enormous. Ship after ship stretched across the display, each one larger and more dangerous looking than the vessels from the first battle. "The new commander calls himself War Prime Vorak," Oh Min-jun continued. "He's from a species called the Veltar. According to our xenobiology team, his people were the first species conquered by the hegemony 10,000 years ago. He's been fighting for them for 10,000 years?" "Yes, ma'am. Intelligence says he's never lost a campaign, never even lost a major battle." Director Kang studied the images of the alien fleet. 2,000 ships, against humanity's rebuilt fleet of 300 vessels. Better odds than last time, but still impossible. "Ma'am," Oh Min-jun said quietly, "there's something else. Our telepathic monitoring stations are picking up communications from the hegemony fleet. The aliens are afraid." "Afraid of us?" "Yes, ma'am. They're calling us the demon species. They're telling stories about the first battle. Some of the stories aren't even true, but they're spreading through their fleet anyway." Director Kang almost smiled. "Good. Let them be afraid. Fear would make them make mistakes. What's our status?" "Admiral Ro Chang-ho reports the fleet is ready. All ships have been equipped with the new electromagnetic pulse weapons. Colonel An Hyun-ji says her Ghost Corps boarding teams are prepared, and Dr. Song Min-ho has some kind of surprise he won't tell anyone about." "What kind of surprise?" "He just says it has something to do with human thoughts." Before Director Kang could ask what that meant, alarms began sounding throughout the station. The long-range sensors had detected something. The hegemony fleet was moving. War Prime Vorak stood in the command center of his flagship, studying the tactical information about humanity. He was not like Admiral Nasu Jin. Where she was elegant and refined, he was built for war. His energy form crackled with power inside his crystalline armor. His race, the Veltar, had been warriors before the hegemony conquered them. Now they were the hegemony's best soldiers. "Show me the human positions," he ordered. The tactical display lit up with thousands of red markers, human bases, human ships, human weapons platforms. They had been busy. "War Prime," said his aide, Sub-Commander Krickstall. "The human fleet is smaller than our projections suggested. Only 300 ships." "Don't underestimate them," Vorak warned. "I have read the reports from the first battle. These humans fight differently than other species. They don't follow the rules of civilized warfare. They're primitives, War Prime. Their weapons are crude. Their tactics are chaotic." "Chaos can be a weapon, Sub-Commander. I have fought chaotic enemies before." Vorak's energy form flared brighter. "But never one that refuses to surrender when defeat is certain. That makes them dangerous." The hegemony fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the solar system. 2,000 ships of various sizes, from small fighters to massive dreadnoughts. At the center was Vorak's personal command ship, a vessel the size of a small moon. "Human fleet approaching," reported the sensor officer. 300 ships, in formation. But as Vorak watched, something strange happened. The human formation suddenly broke apart. Ships scattered in all directions, some heading toward the inner planets, others diving below the plane of the solar system, still others racing toward the asteroid belt. "What are they doing?" Sub-Commander Krickstall asked. "They're not fighting like a fleet," Vorak realized. "They're fighting like a swarm." Admiral Ro Chung-ho's flagship, the UES Incheon, was racing toward Mars at full speed. Around him, his command staff was coordinating the most complex battle plan humanity had ever attempted. "Phoenix Squadron reports ready," said Commander Park Jung-won. "They're in position behind the Martian moons." "Good. What about the asteroid belt?" "Colonel Shin Yun-ju's fortress ships are powered up and ready. The railguns are targeting the largest enemy vessels." "Excellent." Admiral Ro looked at the tactical display. The hegemony fleet was trying to form a standard battle formation, but they were confused by humanity's scattered ships. Begin Phase 1. Operation Swarm. What happened next had never been seen in galactic warfare. Instead of meeting the enemy in a single large battle, the humans attacked from everywhere at once. Captain Oh Youngmin's destroyer came screaming out of the shadow of Europa, moving so fast that his engines were overheating. Behind him, a squadron of fighters followed in perfect formation. "Target the command ship's escort vessels," Oh Youngmin ordered. "Hit and run, don't get caught." His weapons opened fire on a hegemony cruiser, focusing on the nerve centers that Dr. Song's research had identified. The alien ship staggered under the assault, its biosystems disrupted. But before the hegemony fleet could respond, Oh Youngmin's ships were gone, racing away at maximum speed. On the other side of the system, Captain Ko Min-jung was leading her own attack. Her heavy cruiser and its escort ships emerged from the asteroid belt, weapons blazing. "Concentrate fire on that big one," she ordered. "The one with all the antenna arrays." "Ma'am, that's a command ship. It'll be heavily defended. That's why we're going to hurt it and run away." The human ships poured fire into the hegemony command vessel, then disappeared back into the asteroid field before the aliens could retaliate. All across the solar system, the same thing was happening. Small groups of human ships would appear, attack a target and vanish. The hegemony fleet found itself fighting dozens of separate battles at once. "This is impossible," Sub-Commander Krickstall complained. "How can we fight an enemy that won't stand still?" War Prime Vorak was starting to understand. "They're not trying to destroy our fleet in open battle. They're trying to wear us down, make us chase them, divide our forces. Should we split our fleet to pursue them? No, that's what they want." Vorak studied the tactical display. "Order all ships to maintain formation. We advance on their home planet. Force them to defend it." But as the hegemony fleet moved toward Earth, they ran into humanity's second surprise. Colonel Shin Yun-ju commanded Fortress Series, a massive weapons platform built into the largest asteroid in the belt. She had been waiting for this moment for 6 months. Target acquired, her weapons officer reported. Enemy dreadnought bearing 270. Fire. The railgun built into series fired a projectile the size of a bus at a significant fraction of light speed. The projectile hit the hegemony dreadnought with the force of a nuclear weapon, punching completely through its bioarmor and out the other side. The alien ship broke in half. Reload, Colonel Shin ordered calmly. Next target. All. Through the asteroid belt, hidden weapons platforms opened fire, railguns, missile launchers, particle beam weapons, all targeting the hegemony fleet as it passed through the system. War Prime Vorak watched in growing anger as his ships took damage from enemies he couldn't see. The humans had turned their entire solar system into a weapon. War Prime, his communications officer reported, "We're receiving a transmission from the human fleet. Put it on screen." Admiral Ro Chang-ho appeared on the display. He was an older man with gray hair and calm eyes. Behind him, Vorak could see the bridge of a human warship. "War Prime Vorak," Admiral Ro said politely. "Welcome to our solar system. I hope you're enjoying your visit so far." "Human Admiral," Vorak replied, "your tactics are impressive, but they cannot save you. You are only delaying the inevitable." "Maybe. But we're making you pay for every kilometer of space, aren't we?" Admiral Ro smiled. "And we're just getting started." The transmission ended, and immediately the human attacks intensified. This time they were different. Colonel An Hyun-ji led her Ghost Corps in the most daring assault of the war so far. Using stolen hegemony technology, her boarding teams had made their ships invisible to alien sensors. They approached the enemy fleet like ghosts, silent and unseen. "Remember," Colonel Ann transmitted to her teams, "we're not trying to capture these ships. We're trying to drive them crazy." 2 years had passed since War Prime Vorak's defeat, and the galaxy was watching. For the first time in 100,000 years, the Viridian hegemony had suffered 2 defeats against the same species. Across the galaxy, whispers of rebellion were growing stronger. The Eternal One, God Emperor of the hegemony, sat in his crystal throne on the capital world of Viridian Prime. He was ancient beyond measure, his consciousness spanning 100,000 years of conquest and rule. His physical form was pure energy contained within a shell of living crystal the size of a building. Around him, the Council of War Primes knelt in submission. These were the greatest military commanders of the hegemony, beings who had conquered thousands of worlds. But today they brought news of failure. "Speak," the Eternal One commanded, his voice like the sound of stars being born. War Prime Vorak stepped forward, his energy form flickering with shame. "Eternal One, the humans have defeated our second fleet. Our losses were significant." "How significant?" 800 ships destroyed or damaged beyond repair. 300 commanders killed. 17,000 crew members lost to telepathic shock. Vorak paused. "The humans have also developed new weapons, viruses that attack our biosystems, thought weapons that disrupt our telepathic networks." The Eternal One's energy flared with anger, causing the crystal walls of the throne room to crack. "You are telling me that a primitive species with crude technology has defeated the greatest military force in the galaxy twice?" "They are not primitive, Eternal One," Vorak said carefully. "They are different. They think differently, fight differently. They use chaos as a weapon. They turn their weaknesses into strength." "Enough." The Eternal One rose from his throne, his massive form filling the chamber with blinding light. "I have ruled this galaxy for 100,000 years. I have seen the rise and fall of countless civilizations. I have brought peace to 1,000 worlds." He moved toward the great viewing window that looked out over Viridian Prime. The planet was a marvel of crystal and energy, home to trillions of beings from across the galaxy. "This human infestation ends now. Prepare the third fleet, every ship in the hegemony, every weapon we possess, every warrior at our command." War Prime Zethul, commander of the hegemony's eastern territories, dared to speak. "Eternal One," That would leave our other borders undefended. The rebellions in the Outer Rim will end when the humans are destroyed and other species remember why they fear us. The Eternal One turned back to his commanders. 50,000 ships, 100 billion warriors. I will lead them personally. The war primes exchanged glances. The Eternal One had not personally led a fleet in 10,000 years. His decision to do so now meant only one thing. He intended to destroy not just humanity's military, but their entire species. Eternal One, Vorak said slowly. Perhaps a smaller force. You have failed me twice, War Prime Vorak. The humans have made me look weak before my subjects. There are already reports of rebellion on 17 worlds. The God Emperor's energy, form blazed brighter. I will not allow a species of primitives to threaten my empire. They will be erased from existence as an example to anyone who dares defy us. Fleet Admiral Shin Kyung-suk stood in the command center of New Geneva Station, humanity's newest and largest military base. Around her, holographic displays showed the impossible sight approaching their system. 50,000 alien ships moving, in perfect formation, led by a vessel the size of Earth's moon. Ma'am, said Captain Yu Jung-ho, her chief of staff. Long-range sensors confirmed the enemy fleet composition. This isn't just the hegemony military. They've brought ships from every corner of their empire. How long until they arrive? 18 hours at their current speed. Fleet Admiral Shin looked at the numbers on her display. Humanity now had 800 ships, their largest fleet ever. Against 50,000 alien vessels, it was nothing. What about our allies? The Korthani Rebellion is sending 200 ships. The Friezeferian clans have promised 150 fighters. The Morvac Republic is contributing their entire fleet, about 300 vessels. So we have 1,500 ships against 50,000. Shin was quiet for a moment. Has Dr. Bay finished his project? Yes, ma'am. He says the quantum storm generators are ready, but... Captain Yu hesitated. Ma'am, he also says using them is extremely dangerous. They could tear holes in space itself. How big holes? He's not sure. Maybe small ones that heal quickly. Maybe big ones that destroy entire solar systems. Fleet Admiral Shin nodded. Humanity had always been good at building weapons that were too dangerous to use, but now they had no choice. Send word to all ships. We make our stand at the Centauri Nexus. If we can't win there, at least we'll make them remember us. The Centauri Nexus was a region of space where several hyperspace routes came together. It was the perfect place for a last battle. Lots of room to maneuver, multiple escape routes, and most importantly, it was far enough from Earth that if Dr. Bay's weapons went wrong, they wouldn't destroy humanity's homeworld. The human fleet took position in the Nexus and waited. They didn't wait long. The hegemony fleet arrived like a moving wall of metal and energy. Ship after ship dropped out of hyperspace until they filled the space around the Nexus. At the center of the formation was the Eternal One's personal vessel, a living moon of crystal and biometal that pulsed with the power of stars. All human ships, Fleet Admiral Shin broadcast. This is it. This is where we make our stand. Remember who we are. Remember what we're fighting for. We may not win today, but we're going to make them pay for every meter of space. The response from her fleet was immediate. Hundreds of captains acknowledging her orders. Thousands of crew members at their stations ready to die for their species' freedom. But they weren't planning to die easily. The battle began with the hegemony's traditional tactics. Massive formations of dreadnoughts advancing slowly, bioweapons primed, overwhelming firepower ready to destroy everything in their path. The humans responded with everything they had learned from 2 years of desperate warfare. Captain Ko Min-jung had turned her heavy cruiser into a flying bomb. She had removed all the armor and most of the crew compartments, filling the ship with explosives and quantum storm generators. This is the UES Gwangju, she broadcast. We're going to visit that big ship in the center. Tell my family I love them. Her ship accelerated toward the Eternal One's vessel, dodging through the alien formation at impossible speed. Point defense weapons tried to stop her, but the Gwangju was too small and too fast. She rammed her ship directly into the Eternal One's flagship. The explosion was visible from light years away. The quantum storm generators tore reality apart at the point of impact, creating a temporary hole in space itself. The Eternal One's ship, protected by armor that could stop supernovas, was torn open like paper. For the first time in 100,000 years, the God Emperor of the hegemony felt pain. His scream of rage and shock echoed across the telepathic network that connected his fleet. Every alien commander felt their god's pain, and many of them panicked. Major M.J. Sung saw his opportunity. Leading the new Marine Assault Corps, he launched his forces in powered armor that combined human technology with captured alien biosystems. His Marines were terrifying to see. Human creativity combined with alien technology had produced warriors that were part soldier, part machine, part living weapon. They moved through space without ships, using personal hyperdrives to teleport directly onto enemy vessels. Ghost Marines, attack pattern Delta. Major M ordered. Target their command ships. 2,000 human Marines appeared simultaneously throughout the hegemony fleet, boarding ships and spreading chaos wherever they went. Unlike previous boarding actions, these Marines weren't trying to capture or destroy the ships. They were hunting the alien commanders. The hegemony had always relied on centralized command. Kill the officers, and the crew would surrender. But the Ghost Marines discovered that many alien species had never learned to fight without orders. From above, entire ships surrendered when their commanders were killed, even though their crews outnumbered the human boarders 1,000 to 1. Commander Park Subin had spent 2 years developing humanity's most creative weapons. Her engineering teams had studied every piece of alien technology they could find, then combined it with human innovation in ways that defied logic. Releasing the Nightmare Swarm, she announced. From her command ship came a cloud of tiny objects that looked like metal insects. Each one was the size of a human thumb, equipped with a small hyperspace drive and a quantum destabilizer. The swarm spread throughout the hegemony fleet, with each tiny drone selecting a target and teleporting inside an alien ship. Once inside, they released their quantum destabilizers, causing random objects to phase in and out of reality. The effect was terrifying. Alien crew members would reach for a control panel only to have their hand pass through it. Weapons would fire, and then cease to exist. Entire sections of ships would become intangible, causing the crew to float helplessly in space. But the human fleet was taking massive casualties too. For every alien ship destroyed, humanity lost 10 vessels. Admiral Shin watched her fleet being slowly ground down by the sheer size of the enemy force. That's when the Eternal One himself entered the battle. 5 years had passed since the death of the Eternal One, and the galaxy was a different place. The mighty Viridian hegemony, which had ruled for 100,000 years, had shattered like glass. Across thousands of worlds, species that had forgotten the meaning of freedom were remembering how to say no. President Lee Han-ah stood at the observation window of New Geneva Station, watching ships from dozens of different worlds dock at humanity's first intergalactic embassy. The station was a marvel of cooperative engineering, human creativity combined with alien technology, and powered by shared dreams of freedom. "Ma'am," said her aide, Ambassador Cho Min-seo, "the Korthani delegation has arrived. They're requesting immediate assistance with their rebellion against the remaining hegemony forces." "What kind of assistance?" "Military advisors, weapons technology, and..." Ambassador Cho paused. "They want to learn how to fight like humans." President Lee smiled. 5 years ago, humanity had been facing extinction. Now alien species across the galaxy were studying human military tactics, trying to understand how a small species with primitive technology had defeated the greatest empire in galactic history. "Tell them we'll send Admiral Yu Jung-ho with a training squadron. He knows how to teach alien crews our fighting methods." The truth was, humanity had discovered something that changed everything. They had learned that the galaxy's greatest weakness was not military or technological. It was psychological. For 100,000 years, species had been taught that resistance was hopeless, that the strong would always rule the weak, that freedom was impossible. The humans had proven those ideas wrong. In the Zephyrian system, former hegemony war commander, Veltok sat in a prison cell waiting to be tried for war crimes. But instead of execution, he faced something worse. Questions from human interrogators who wanted to understand how the hegemony had controlled so many species for so long. The system was perfect, Veltok explained to Dr. Moon Ji-hoon, humanity's leading expert on galactic psychology. We would arrive at a system and demonstrate our power. The local species would see our massive fleets, our planet-killing weapons, our God Emperor's divine energy. They would understand that resistance was suicide. But you never actually had to use those weapons very often, did you? Dr. Moon asked. No. Most species surrendered after seeing what we could do. It was logical. Why fight when defeat was certain? That's where you made your mistake, Dr. Moon said gently. You assumed all species would make logical choices when faced with overwhelming force. But humans, we don't always choose the logical option. Veltok was quiet for a long moment. Your species fought when any rational being would have surrendered. You turned certain defeat into impossible victory. How? Because we weren't fighting for victory, Dr. Moon explained. We were fighting for the right to fight. We were fighting to prove that freedom matters more than survival. And once we proved that was possible, well, the idea spread. It had spread like wildfire. On world after world, species that had been enslaved for thousands of years began to rebel. The hegemony's remaining forces found themselves fighting dozens of separate wars across the galaxy. Without their God Emperor, without their massive fleets, without their aura of invincibility, they were just another military force, and not even a very good one. Captain Kim Tae-ho, now an old man, walked slowly through the memorial garden on Earth. The garden honored all the humans who had died in the war. Millions of names carved, in black stone surrounded by flowers from every world humanity had ever visited. He stopped at one particular section. The pilots who had died attacking the Eternal One. Seo Hyun-woo and Yang Da-hee were there, along with hundreds of others who had sacrificed their lives in the final battle. Captain, a young voice said behind him. Kim Tae-ho turned to see a child, maybe 7 years old, with the distinctive features of the Veltar species. The child's parents stood nearby, refugees from a hegemony world who had fled to Earth after their own rebellion failed. Yes, little one? My parents told me you were in the first battle with the big alien ships, is that true? Yes, I was there. Were you scared? Kim Tae-ho smiled and knelt down to the child's level, terrified. We all were. We knew we would probably die. Then why did you fight? It was a question Kim Tae-ho had been asked many times over the years. Children from dozens of species wanted to understand how the humans had found the courage to face impossible odds. Because, he said carefully, sometimes the most important battles are the ones you can't win. Sometimes you fight, not because you think you can win, but because fighting is the right thing to do. The child thought about this for a moment. And sometimes you win anyway? Sometimes you win anyway. Across the galaxy, the remnants of the hegemony were learning what humanity had taught them. On the former capital world of Viridian Prime, the crystal palaces of the Eternal One lay in ruins. The planet's population, once numbering in the trillions, had dropped to a few million as species returned to their homeworlds or joined the growing alliance of free worlds. Former War Prime Vorak had survived the final battle and now led a small group of hegemony loyalists in a desperate last stand. They had fortified themselves in the ruins of the God Emperor's palace, hoping to make a final statement of defiance. But the army surrounding them wasn't human. It was made up of dozens of species that had once been hegemony subjects. Korthani, Zephyrians, Morvac, and many others. They had learned human tactics and were using them with devastating effectiveness. Warprime, Sub-Commander Krixtal said, they're offering terms again. Surrender now, and they promise fair treatment. Vorak looked out at the mixed alien force surrounding his position. 5 years ago, all of these species had been loyal subjects of the hegemony. Now they fought alongside humans as equals. What kind of terms? Trial for war crimes, but not execution. Imprisonment, but not torture. They say... Krixtal paused. They say they want to understand us, not destroy us. Forek was quiet for a long moment. It was a very human approach to victory, trying to understand your enemy instead of simply eliminating them. Send word to our forces, he said finally. We surrender. The last organized hegemony resistance ended not with a great battle, but with a simple decision to stop fighting. On Earth, in the Human Defense Council headquarters, Admiral Yu Jung-ho was briefing President Lee Ha-na on the status of liberation efforts across the galaxy. The Andromedan front reports complete success, he said. The last hegemony strongholds in that galaxy have fallen. The species there are already forming their own defense alliance. What about the core worlds? Mixed results. Some species want to join the Terran Commonwealth. Others want complete independence. A few are trying to form their own small empires. Admiral Yu paused. The Zeta Reticulans are asking if we can help them establish democratic governments. Apparently, they've been slaves for so long they don't remember how to govern themselves. President Lee nodded. This was the challenge humanity hadn't expected. What do you do with a galaxy full of species who had forgotten how to be free? Send diplomatic teams to help them, she decided. But make it clear, we're not here to rule them. We're here to help them rule themselves. It was a very human distinction, but an important one. The galaxy was full of species who knew how to conquer, how to control, how to dominate. But humans had learned something else. How to liberate without enslaving. How to win without ruling. Ambassador Cho Min-seo entered the briefing room with a data pad. Ma'am, we've received a formal request from the Galactic Council of Free Worlds. They want to establish a permanent headquarters here on New Geneva Station. What kind of council? Representatives from over 2,000 species. They want to create a forum where disputes can be resolved peacefully, where trade can be regulated fairly, where smaller species can ask for help without being conquered. President Lee looked at the data pad. 2,000 species, all learning to cooperate, as equals instead of being ruled by force. It was an experiment in freedom on a scale the galaxy had never seen. Tell them yes, she said. But with conditions. The council governs by consensus, not by force. No species gets more votes because they're bigger or stronger. And humans get no special privileges just because we started this. It was, Admiral Yu realized, a very human way to handle victory. Most species would have used their military success to establish themselves as the new rulers of the galaxy. But humans seemed more interested in making sure no one ruled the galaxy. Dr. Moon Ji-hoon had spent 5 years studying the psychological impact of humanity's victory, and his conclusions were startling. The fall of the hegemony hadn't just freed enslaved species. It had changed the way the entire galaxy thought about power and freedom. The humans introduced a new concept, he explained to a gathering of alien psychologists and philosophers. The idea that strength should be used to protect the weak, not to dominate them. The idea that diversity makes a civilization stronger, not weaker. The idea that freedom is worth fighting for even when victory is impossible. One of the alien scholars, a crystalline being from the former hegemony core worlds, raised a delicate appendage. But Dr. Moon, these ideas seem to contradict natural selection. The strong have always ruled the weak. It is the way of evolution.